Students, we are in the sixth part now, continuation of the elbow complex. So we will be discussing about what Bootlang and colleague found regarding the valgus and varus laxity of the elbow joint, and the greatest varus valgus laxity, or what we call as the accessory movement of the elbow joint, is between 0 degree and 40 degree of flexion, and decreased whenever the flexion exceeded 100 degrees. That means that the flexion exceeded the midway, or crossing the midway. Same way like the Ericsson and co-workers, however, Boatlang and colleagues found that all instantaneous rotation axes nearly intersected on the medial facet. The only difference between the study conducted by Boatlang and the Ericsson was that the Boatlang study found that all the rotation axes intersected the medial facet, or what we call as the middle part of the trochlea. That was the only difference between seen in their study. So here if you see, this is picture 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 and 6. So all of these are what we can call as inter-axis, that is it is intra-individual, inter-individual, sorry, to be frank. It is the difference. Here we are seeing this in this study, we are seeing that flexion is happening in different angles, that is between 30 to 120 degrees of flexion is happening, and in that they have seen, here you can see that here 1, 2, 3, 4 is given, same way everywhere on the both sides are given. Here this is in a specific study that one given here is in red, and you can see the one here. Here you can see the 4 here is the blue marked, and here you can see the 4 above. So there is a slight tilting, and there is difference in this. Here if you see the 3 here, it is upward, and you can see that the center of axis here, it is almost same. The both axes are in same line. So but that's why we don't see much change. But when you take this specimen number 3, you can see that in the specimen number 3, 4 ranges out study in the 4 ranges have been taken, and you can see the how the 2 line 2, you can see here it is totally in a different inclination, and here you can see that the 2 is horizontal in the 6th specimen. So from person to person, these are different individuals, actually study taken in different individuals, and you can see the shape of the articulated surfaces are mildly different in each person, and the joint space is also differing in each person. So we have to, this picture is just to make you understand that in different persons, mild difference in the shape and size of the trochlea and capitulum and the articulating surfaces may show variations in the degree of axis of rotation in elbow joint, as well as in the valgus and varus, what you call as laxity. So now we will go to, we have studied about the horizontal axis. Now we are talking about the another longitudinal axis. Already we have discussed a straight line. So here in this picture, here it is to show that there is a angle which we call as carrying angle of elbow joint, or what's otherwise called as the valgus angle of the elbow joint, or otherwise cubitus valgus. So here you can see the person, figure A, the person is standing in the anatomical position, and if he supinates his hand, outstretches, then you can see a normal, the shaft of the humerus is like this, but from here the elbow joint there is an outward deviation. And to show that specifically with a proper axis, you have a figure B. The figure B, you can see straight line, if imaginary line through the shaft of the humerus is coming down like this. Actually, if it would have been straight, our hand should have been in this, the ulna and the radius midline should have been in this line, but it is not like that. So that is because of what we have studied, the shape of the trochlea and the especially the intertrochlear groove is there, and this groove is where the movement is happening, and because of that, whenever the person goes for extension, the normal carrying angle becomes evident. But here it is a different position, this is not normal. figure C. Here you can see that the straight line of the humerus is like should be like this, but here the radial ulnar midline is going inward medially. Here it is going laterally. So medially it is a kind of varus, medial movement from a joint towards a medial is called as varus. So here there is a varus movement of the, otherwise called as cubitus varus is there. This is pathological. This is not normal. So when the upper extremity is in the anatomic position, the long axis of the humerus and the long axis of the forearm form an acute angle medially, when they meet at the elbow. The angulation in the frontal plane is caused by the configuration of the articulating surface at the humero-ulnar joint. The medial aspect of the trochlea extends more distally than does the lateral aspect. We have studied in the last earlier part. The medial aspect of the trochlea extends more distally than does the lateral aspect. Because of that, what happens? Which shifts the medial aspect of the ulnar trochlear notch more distally and results in a lateral deviation. This is a lateral deviation. This is a lateral deviation, and or otherwise called as valgus. Whenever there is movement away from the midline, it is called as valgus. So distal part moving away from the midline or lateral deviation is called as valgus. So here it is cubitus valgus. Cubitus means elbow. So elbow joint valgus, or otherwise called as carrying angle. So this normal, this is this pathological? No, this is normal for all human being, and this normal valgus angulation of the elbow joint is called carrying angle or cubitus valgus. The average angle in full elbow extension is about 15 degrees. An increase in the carrying angle beyond the average is considered to be abnormal. As I already told you that carrying angle is normal, but it should be normal means 15 degree of angle is normal. If it is more, it is not, it cannot be considered normal, it is considered abnormal, and especially abnormality increases. We can say it is a pathology when it happens in one hand. If two hands have a degree, both the hand are in, for example, say 18 degree or 19 degree, then we can consider it is near normal, even though it is abnormal. But if one person has right elbow joint 25 degree and the left elbow joint 15 degree, then it is the right elbow joint is a pathological problem. A varus angulation at the elbow is referred to as, what is that? Elbow varus, elbow joint varus, otherwise called as cubitus varus, and usually abnormal. It should not be happening. Normally, the carrying angle disappears when the forearm is pronated. So just now I request all of you to just put your elbow in an anatomical position, and you can see that, especially if you see in the mirror, you can see that there is a mild 15 degree of cubitus valgus. But when you pronate your hand, what happens is your hand becomes the midline between the ulna and the radius becomes straight with the line with the humerus. And when the supination forearm is, now if you bring it back to supination, again there is, in the extended arm there is cubitus valgus. But now you flex the supinated forearm against the humerus in full elbow flexion. Then also what happens? The carrying angle disappears. The configuration of the trochlear groove determines, you all remember that last classes we have studied that earlier in the introduction, when we study the articulating surface of the humerus, we have studied that there is a trochlea, two parts of the trochlea, and between the two parts, the medial and lateral part, we have a groove. And so here you have to understand the biomechanics of trochlea, that the configuration of the trochlear groove determines the pathway of the forearm. So when we are all flexing our elbow joint, the movement happens between the the trochlea and the capitulum and what will and the ulna and the radius. But here the movement of the flexion and extension of the forearm is dictated or determined. The movement, the range of movement, the direction of movement, everything is dictated or determined by what? The intertrochlear groove or the trochlear groove. In the most common configuration of the groove, the ulna is guided progressively medially from extension to flexion. When you are extending and then you are flexing, here because of the intertrochlear groove and the ulna is because if you remember the ridge of the ulna where the in the olecranon process is what you call as the olecranon process, the anterior side, you can say, if you remember the slide earlier, it shows the sagittal and frontal view of the proximal surface of ulna. You can see a ridge. So this ridge, trochlear ridge, which has to go into the trochlear groove, is guiding the ulna. But and what is the difference we are seeing? Important, not difference, importance we are seeing is the ulna is guided progressively medially from extension. So it from extension to flexion, it moves medially to what we call as the lateral movement. So when during flexion, when this happens, what happens is the valgus decreases. So in full flexion, the forearms to come into rest in the same plane as a humerus. So with complete flexion, there is no cubitus valgus. This is because of the ulnar guiding to medially, progressively medially from extension to flexion. In extension, the forearm moves laterally until it reaches a position slightly lateral. So naturally, when somebody is extending, the forearm, the ulna is moving laterally, and then when you are flexing, the ulna is moving medially. That is because of the progressive medial movement of the ulna during flexion and progressive lateral movement of the ulna during extension, and that is determined because of the position of the trochlear groove. Variations in the direction of the groove will alter the pathway of the forearm. The variations in whatever is the shape, direction of the groove will change the pathway of the forearm, so that when the elbow is passively flexed, the forearm will come to rest either medial or lateral to the humerus in flexion. So here to show you more, the normal mechanism in this, you are seeing this is normal. Picture A shows normal mechanism. This is normally when somebody, here you can see the ulna and the radius, and you can see the trochlear groove here. This is the trochlea, and you can see the capitulum. So here this is the trochlear groove. This is the medial trochlea, and this is the lateral trochlea. So when there is flexion, and you can see now this is flexed because this is the humeral head, and they now totally flexed. The forearm is flexed like this. Here it is in flex. So here it is in straight line. The shaft of the humerus as well as both the ulna and the radius is in the straight line. You can see there is no deviation. But here in the picture B, if at all, if you after active movement, if somebody tries to press, if you press your hand after flexion with the other hand, then again some range of flexion may be possible. That is what we call as passive forced flexion of the elbow. In that, either it can move to medial side or to the lateral side. So here it is moving towards the medial side, and here it can move to, here it is moving towards the lateral side. Here you can, because this is the olecranon process of the ulna, and you can see the distal end of the ulna here, and you can see the distal end of radius here is the styloid process. So this is a medial towards moon. The picture clearly shows that how the resting. This is a normal resting position in active flexion of elbow. This is passive. Both it can go to medial or else to the lateral. Range of motion. So we are here. The number of factors determine the amount of motion that is available at the elbow joint. Now you already understand how complex the elbow joint is. So when you are talking about the range of motion, means it is very very important that biomechanical flexibility of the joint relates to the range of motion of the elbow joint. We will